Alright, it's time to finish this. So, from Zeru to Chu, we got the other team's demons that fought to Guro. We've got M1, 2, and 3, Gamma, Toya. You know, we've gone through quite a few battles, and we've even seen some foreshadowing with Hiei powering up and really getting to where he's healing up from where he's been trying to master the Darkness Flame, right? And all of this is coming up, and now where we're at is we have the 4 strongest teams left. Now the reason I'm bringing up Chu and Zeru and all those other people, I don't want to get to Jin because he is at quite a different level of power. Even M1, 2, and 3 were quite a bit above even like empowered Chu and such. But thing is none of those people made it to the 4 strongest teams. But someone who did is McIntyre. I was talking about him last time, how he's not as fodder as people would consider him, even though, like, you know, you see, like, what actually happens to him, and I'll be showing it, but he's uninjured and has been fighting people of this level throughout the entire tournament. He's not weak. But let's get into the actual battle. Just wanted to suggest that all the other battles we've come across, McIntyre has been facing them, like those levels. So, if we've been talking about how much stronger did Hiei get while mastering the Darkness Flame, the little bit he could, trying to heal up, well, let's look. I only have 2 scans to show you because of what happens. But at the start of the match, we know Hiei blitzes, but he's doing it in a show-off way. What you see here is a little bit of blood falling beneath Hiei, and McIntyre can't even tell what happened. He's like, come on, attack me. And Hiei, of course, has already attacked him. He very casually had blitzed him. Nobody in the audience could actually see Hiei move. Kuwabara barely could see Hiei move. And this guy couldn't even feel that his arm had been cut off and taken. I want to make this also clear is Hiei is wearing pitch black. He would have been exceedingly easy to see. We also know that then McIntyre goes into, you know, attack Hiei once more, only for him to be blitzed yet again with a sword through his head. Those are the scans. That's it. That's essentially the whole fight. The point here is McIntyre isn't fodder. This is simply one of the biggest clear-cut exponential increases that we have been able to see. Now, again, this is injured Hiei. He is very injured. But he goes on, he's very confident, willing to take on everybody on this team at this point. And he goes against this person, Momotaro, who at this point has already taken a steam sphere to be immune to his sword, and has increased in his power and speed. He goes to hit Hiei here. We can see that he actually smashes him all the way through, all the way towards the end of the wall, and Hiei is slightly more injured, as he's already been injured in his PL, an amount of energy he can actually access. Now what we can see here too is Kuro even talks about assimilating the combat techniques of the adversary, you know, with his steam spheres and being able to overcome the opponent. However, we also know that the steam sphere, which is actually the Kibidango ball here, it also increases his strength, right? So we know that increases his actual stats. However, as we continue, Hiei goes in and we can see the amount of damage he actually does. It's just not able to take out this guy. So then with another steam sphere, which if he couldn't use, he would have probably lost this, he now increases once more. And this once more doesn't just assimilate his ability to overcome his Fist of the Mortal Flame, but additionally increases his power level, and his stats. We can further see here the announcer even saying one can sense a huge increase in his power. Not that he simply has a huge power, but the increase to his power. In which case, now he's able to hit Hiei much easier. He's having a much easier time being able to actually catch and hit Hiei. Hiei still feels confident, and he goes in and catches him once more. We can see that at point blank, he's still able to dodge Kuro, even with his newest transformation. while Hiei again is at portions of his power. And then he rapid fire hits this guy. The problem is that he's immune now. He goes to hit Hiei, missing, and now he wants to go for his last actual transformation just for even more power and speed. And at this point, we can see he's like, I'm still rising in power. Now, Hiei, of course, has an extra technique, because I will be showing you something at the end to show just how injured Hiei was at the start of this. Kuro goes in to bite Hiei, and you can see he just sinks his teeth in. If you don't believe me, the top panel shows that his top teeth are not actually fully into Hiei yet, and he was actually blitzed. And so what's important here is, as he got faster and faster and stronger, Hiei was constantly just essentially toying with him. Now we know that ultimately, if you wanted to argue from author's intent, his intent was to actually give Hiei a battle where he could, for once, actually show growth in new abilities. Because Hiei, for the longest time, before the dragon, he was just pure swords play, and then now he was just swords play in one dragon, whereas other people had multitude of extra techniques. Hiei never actually had extra techniques. So it makes sense that you would give him a combatant who would keep getting used to more and more, techniques, to have a battle where Hiei could show more without just being blitzed and killed instantly. And yet when we have him at his strongest, well, now Hiei just blitzes and kills him in one new technique. Now, the reason why this is impressive and does make sense is that he actually channels the darkness flame into the sword. It is not simply his human flames. Now, if you want to know how much he's actually injured by, we can see here, Kuwabara thinks that he's going to use his Dragon of the Darkness Flame and reduce him to ash. However, Kurama's like, he can't. And the thing is, it's like, to call it into Earth, requires a considerable amount of energy. He only lost a little bit last time, but this, he doesn't have enough energy in reserve to call a dragon into Earth, right? So the thing is like, this is actually like summoning. It requires a certain amount of energy. Not necessarily, you need a certain level of power to control the dragon. However, you need a certain amount of energy left to actually even, bait it, is essentially how it works, to summon it out into Earth. And Hiei is so vastly low in his amount of energy that he actually has essentially less energy than when he fought Zeru in terms of his total remaining energy percentage. Now, there is another scan, I believe, says he's at like 60% of his total PL, like if he was full health, everything. And so that gives an example here in how much he's actually empowered himself. Because no matter what way you slice it, the fact is that he's at such a low percentage, he has less percentage energy than what he had to pull out the dragon against Zeru as a lower level, in power. He has even less than that. But he's increased his actual, his stat-wise for what he can pull out of his energy by, obscene amounts, such that he can actually fight people stronger than Zeru with even just portions of his energy. So now, while he cannot actually call out the dragon, he doesn't have enough energy, he's at percentages of his actual energy. We can see, as I showed, he can blitz and one-shot someone like with a minor technique of using imbuing those same darkness flames into his sword. So that should give an idea on just how injured he was, how low of an energy amount he had, and to give you an idea, he's now stronger with even portions of his energy than he was when he was at full energy against Zeru. And this is, at this point, not full power, not full energy Hiei. And we can see that. Now, as we continue on, we have Kurama versus Urashima. And the one thing I want to show about this is, because we know what happens, he turns him essentially back into Yoko. There's not too much to go for scaling here, other than mostly this scan here, where Kuwabara is like, I don't believe it, which one of the two is emitting this power? And, Hiei is like, obviously, it's Kurama. Thing is, it's like, Kuwabara is like, he's really like that. And he is like, I've never seen him so powerful, I would like to measure myself against him. The thing is this is obviously the strongest that Yoko, or Kurama himself, has ever shown in terms of overall power. And Hiei is talking about like, I would like to measure myself against him. Thing is this shows that Yoko Kurama is a massive increase to stats, because Kurama has not shown the same growth that, not even close to what they've given Hiei, with him amping himself, consistently being healed and mastering the dragon, while, behind Ruka's little whatever shenanigans that they were trying to pull off. However, we do see later, at the end of the series, that it's a base 80 times multiplier in PL. Now, I've lowballed this heavily before and said that it would make sense that it's more like an 80 times increase to stats, and not simply like the PL2 stats, which has been shown time and time again. However, I'll get to that more accurately again with the future videos, but just know that this makes a lot of sense that he's considered so much more powerful, given the gap that they kind of gave Hiei over Kurama with his latest scaling. And yet now, Hiei just would like to measure himself against him because he's not sure. Yoko is very powerful. Now, ultimately, we know that Shishi just, takes him out because it threw the barrier that was set up, and Yoko is no more for now. We also additionally know, however, going forward, that every time he transforms into Yoko, he keeps a portion of his power. So if you are now going to wonder in the future, how does Kurama get stronger without maybe showing like huge like growths in fights? This is where they start using this. Now, at the beginning here, you wouldn't know, but later they talk about it, where every time he transforms, he retains some of his past power as Yoko. Now, one other thing, however, is that Shishi is really feeling himself. You can see here, he's like, it's not so astonishing that that loser was impressed by so much strength. So he's kind of hinting that he's not that impressed by Yoko's strength. But we'll see how that works out. Now, I wish I could show more when it comes to like Kuwabara, but sadly he just doesn't have a lot of scaling things, and that is the purpose. We know that he faces Shishi Wakamaru and gets teleported away. That doesn't help with scaling, but we do see a size of the island, which will actually help, because if you see the stadium, that's like the false stadium where they got lost, and the big stadium in the bottom left is where they are. This is future, and I'll get to this, but just for now, the bottom left tournament stadium, if you remember the feat where Toguro at 0% punches his B-class brother, like another half an island's distance past this island, he's punching him from the bottom left stadium. He's punching him a full island and a half's distance, to give you an idea. Okay, but that is going towards the future, but this does align with the Kuwabara fight. With Shishi Wakamaru continuing, we have him versus Genkai. And we even have Kurama talking about how the sword itself emits more power than Shishi himself. So with Genkai getting ready to take on Shishi here, we know that Shishi eventually hits the ground and has his chorus of 1,000 souls come out. An interesting feat for Yu Yu Hakusho is simply that you have full easy interactions with actual spirits. These are the spirits of the dead, and they are strong enough to easily kill demons. And yeah, you can see like if you're talking about like for example, Yu Yu Hakusho versus some other given force. But this verse can they're actual like spirits or something. Like aside from like something like Toguro, he's eating souls. Well, he's not even close to the only character who can interact with souls. It's actually very normal. And soul interactions, hitting the soul is actually quite normal with Yu Yu Hakusho. So now, what was the force of the blow that actually had all those souls come out? Well, here it is. This entire crater here came from merely a portion of the edge of his sword. Now, if we're talking about potency, think about the cubic centimeters of space, of volume, that was used to make that amount of destruction, right? And this is still maybe mid-C class at best. Potentially Shishi himself is lower C class, just because the gaps are so big, and the sword is mid-C class, but it's hard to tell. However, Genkai, she has an idea, and we'll see what her plan is, where she actually decides she's going to return his power. Now, the thing that's very important here is that she's doing this because she herself has lost her power. She has given her spirit orb to Yusuke. This is exceedingly impressive because she actually loses, like, it's just an absurd amount of energy. To give you an idea, as I was talking about, like, the amount of force that a person can bring out, it really says something when they're at portions of their total energy. Well, Hiei was at portions of his total energy, like portions of his total energy. Genkai gave away total energy, more so than actually giving away portions of her total energy. It's not like she would reclaim her lost energy and she'll just regenerate her energy or something over time. She actually gave away the, like, total energy, the top end. She limited herself to actually, like, a heavily nerfed version. And it was such a degree, you can see here, like, it's referred to as like an actual sun's worth of energy, which I personally would take as potentially just hyperbole here, but to give you an idea, it's a massive amount. Now, what we do know is that it's to such a degree that she feels she can only fire about 3 spirit guns at all. And yet, she is still able to take on these C-class demons, and do so rather easily. So let's continue. She's gonna fight Shishi Wakamaru, and she even notes here once more, I didn't think I would lose so much strength. And Shishi eventually sets up this giant wall so that she can't escape. And he's coming in with the full power of the attack that you had seen before. Whereas Genkai now catches it and uses the Spirit Wave. You would have seen this idea here before with what Yusuke did with Jin. However, this is a more mastered version, where she can not only handle his technique and power, but she also takes his power and sends it directly back. And at a point blank, she says here, just returned your own force. And this was enough to actually completely take out Shishi Wakamaru in one go. Now, as we continue, it's also noted that Yusuke is stronger. We don't get them to say, like, how much stronger they feel or anything like that, but after he's absorbed the spirit gun, he's completely asleep. We don't know, like, even what percentage or fraction of energy he's at here, but they can tell he's stronger. Jin notes it, and Chu says, I think that now I can't do anything against him. Now, the very, very impressive thing about this, though, is although they don't say, oh, he's at whatever percentage, it's probably because they can't even tell. He's vastly above them, but even more so, the most impressive thing here is that we know he actually has those spirit cuffs on. He's not just asleep, exhausted, but he also has those spirit cuffs on that completely limit his energy to where, like, he needs to use all of his energy just to be able to move, let alone actually emit any force. So this is massive. Now, back to Genkai kicking butt. We actually get to see that she goes against Suzuka, and we know that she is actually simply way stronger than him. He was supposedly the secret leader, and however, it's just, he's actually not even stronger than Shishi Wakamaru. And so she straight beats him to hell with physicals. And I'll just blow through it really quick, but That's it. Like, she just beats the hell out of him with physicals. Now, this is important because this is Genkai, who has dropped so drastically in power, given all this power to Yusuke. And she's still beating up C-class demons like they're nothing. This is huge scaling. Now, as we go further, we're going to get some scaling with Bui. Now, Bui, we can see the weight of his armor here just a bit. And what happened here is he hit one of the demons and we can see their organs like flying out into the stadium. Now, this also shows some actual kinetic energy here because the stadium is quite far, way past the walls. As many times as it's been shown, characters getting knocked all the way to the wall. For him to, scatter their organs this far, that distance, he's hitting with some insane force. And he's doing it, as we would know, mega casually. He's actually doing it with not just very little energy, almost like zero demonic energy. He's doing it with none, zero. We actually find out he puts zero ki into his axe swing. He does it with pure physical raw strength and nothing else. Remember when we were talking about rando and how much force you needed to, it required basically your demon energy to actually hit harder? And that's like how you actually hit harder and are more durable and everything. Bui is so powerful. He's fighting people that are at least C-class. And just him being B-class allows him to, in pure physicals, zero energy, one-shot people with this much kinetic force. And while you don't see it here, you do see it later where Hiei completely just melts and vaporizes his axe. He does so, and he makes fun of him. He's like, "You're never going to be able to hurt me," making attacks with that axe that has no energy behind it, no ki energy or anything. So we know he doesn't swing it with any ki energy. This is just pure physicals. So we can see here also, aside from him walking, simply causing craters into the ground, we have this guy here, Greninja, who again is one of the top finalists. So at this point, we have people who are again at least probably about mid-C class at the lowest. And he goes in, and you can see it here. He's not just strong, he's absurdly fast. He's blitzing mid-C class demons without them even being able to realize it. And this is also without amping himself with any demon energy. In fact, his armor contains his energy such that he can't really use it. In fact, perfect example, Bui's armor provides the same thing as Gamma's energy restriction. Remember how Kurama could not use his energy, essentially? Or like, actually at all? He had to have his blood flow outwards outside of his body so he could use anything with it? That's Bui's armor. And this is him versus mid-C classes. With no energy. None for speed, none for durability, none for strength. The potency difference here has gotten absolutely disgustingly absurd when you actually factor all of this in. And I can't wait to give you raw numbers. Now, we also have Elder Toguro showing off, fighting off against 3, at minimum, mid-C class demons at the same time. We can see here, he casually can one-shot all 3. I mean, what more is there to show? This is the difference of B class and C class. Now, we have another scaling feat because all of this matters and all of this will come into play. I'm sorry if it doesn't seem like, I'm sorry if it doesn't come off as the most, concise. It's this character, then the next character, then this character. I do apologize. These events do all happen in order, and I can simply show what we are given. These all happen in order. I've already talked about, all the characters going forward, from the past as we go forward. So I'm sorry if it's, again, not as concise as it could be, but essentially, we've seen some of the power of Shishi. We've seen, Genkai, when she limits herself to such a degree that she can still handle, C-class levels. And Bui, with no energy, it all just compiles and compiles. I can't wait till I get to the calcs. But all of these are just, back with Hiei, with portions of his energy, he's so low in energy totals, he can't even summon the dragon, and yet he's gotten so much stronger that with just his portions, he can still destroy blitz people. that are way stronger than what he was doing before. The whole point, again, these videos are for scaling, and I hope that it is abundantly clear. So, now that I've gotten that out of the way, how fast is Karasu? How about with a minor distraction from Bui, he has immediately disappeared all the way behind Kurama, who again has already taken some fractions of power from Yoko. Kurama, of course, his arm, he's just trying to hit right behind him. Karasu's not there anymore. The fact is like, now this is very casual as well. The point is that Karasu can at any time destroy, mid C class Kurama. Next, we have Toguro versus Genkai. Again, now she's gonna give it everything she has. She only has the 3 ray guns, but she's not in good shape. And Toguro, he only goes, as we find out, 45%. Now, what we know is Yusuke actually wakes up, and he's in a rage, and he can sense. Here's the first time, by the way, if all this time you're like, oh man, Genkai has crazy sensing, Hiei has crazy sensing, here's a feat that I forgot to put in. Hiei, if you remember Roto versus Kurama, where he was threatening Kurama's parents with his brother, they're on an uninhabited, essentially, like a far away, stowaway, like demon island, or not even a demon island, it's in human world, but they're on this island, and then all the way in the Japanese mainland, Hiei could track the power of the actual energy sensing of Roto's brother. Holy crap! But Yusuke himself never showed all the sensing until now. Here it is. They don't need all these characters. Oh, Toguro also has shown crazy sensing. Well, here, Yusuke wakes up and he can tell that it's Toguro fighting. And he's in the hotel and they're fighting far away within, the island. So I'm not saying it's a full island's distance, but just to show you, he can sense who it is and from afar. We can also see that Karasu and Bui also can tell. And here we have Genkai hitting Toguro, and Toguro hitting Genkai. This is 45% Toguro. We can see the damage on his arm. And Toguro wishing he could have pulled her heart out. But she gets the better exchange there. But Toguro still feels perfectly fine. So Toguro says, at 45%, it's not enough. In that case, and he's gonna go 80%. And we can see that he has pretty instantaneous regeneration. We'll see this more as well. 80% was way too much. I believe they use this for scaling for Yusuke coming up, because this is some foreshadowing. Why did he need to go 80% when now he's going to have just the air pressure of his fingers? You can see here. You can even see the air pressure going out, where's those miniature things there. And the bottom right is also his hand with going out there. Mostly his fingers. The air pressure alone, she has to dodge or she might die. Why is this man going to 80% for? Again, I think it's going to scale because as he goes in, he's talking about the air pressure created by his fingers is a weapon. He goes in and he punches the ground, aiming for her. And we can see here that actually the air pressure alone rattles the trees around them, actually moves trees. Of course, with the air pressure being omnidirectional, and the majority of the force going into the ground. You can see the size of Toguro's fist there, right? This is one example of the size of a fist, so I can talk about potency here. All that energy output divided down into the cubic centimeters of the fist, right? And we'll eventually see the size of that crater, but she does a spirit gun and he one hand just blocks it. He didn't need to go 80%. So I want to make this clear. At no point did he have to go 80%. It wasn't like 45% is not enough. I have to go 80. No, he didn't. But why did he go 80%? Right here. It's the scaling. This is honestly, if it's not why they do it, then it's the scaling regardless. Because he's talking about like her spirit gun didn't even touch me. Genkai's full power spirit gun, although she was weakened. So let's say she was about mid C class as she was, destroying the other mid C classes. Toguro at 80%? vastly above that. Easily one hand, like, just blocks it. No damage. Well, Yusuke is shackled at this point. He is shackled in his energy, where he's using portions of his energy. As I'll show you, you'll see, I'm not making any of this up. He's using probably less than 10% of his energy right now. And he goes in, and Toguro is surprised by his speed. Noting that he's fast, and it looked like he essentially teleported. He doesn't, of course. I'm just talking about, like, he's shown to be quite fast. He goes in and punches at Toguro in that same hand that blocked a full power spirit gun. About 10% energy Yusuke here. Does this to his hand. You can see the sound effects showing that his fist is breaking. And he punches Yusuke. You can also see the force shoving Toguro back. Now, the very impressive thing is, you can see the force of Toguro, how far Yusuke flies back. And this is still Yusuke at the strongest he's ever been, and yet he's at like 10% of his actual total energy. He would be magnitudes upon magnitudes above this. And honestly, Toguro is still quite casual here. But he broke his hand essentially, and the fingers. So, how much stronger did Yusuke get? Right? At this point, Yusuke is probably at the height of C class, probably realistically at the like lower end. No. At this point, height of C class doesn't make sense. He must be at 80% Toguro. He must be at the lowest end of B class, at 10% of his actual full energy. For him to get, he'd be magnitudes upon magnitude stronger, which might actually make Toguro have to actually somewhat try. And yet, as we see later, it still doesn't. It's still not enough. And yet, just get an idea of the scaling here. Additionally, we'll get another thing. Remember Toguro's crater and the size of his fist? Well, here we have Hiei's fist. Now, Hiei's fist is probably about half the size of Toguro's, which means a lot. That's being divided into the cubic centimeter by half as much. And yet, we can see when he punches the ground here. Look at Hiei. How small is his fist compared to what he's hitting? Yeah, that's still a massively impressive feat. The main thing here is, he's talking about, I need to actually master the dragon by tomorrow. He hasn't yet. He's probably now at full power, where he was at like the 60% or less below, before that, when he took out like Kuro. Now he's probably at like full power. But he still hasn't mastered the dragon. Now if he went from, I literally can't move my arm or anything, to I'm healing and I'm somewhat mastering portions of the darkness energy, which raises Hiei from his Zeru fight to his Kuro fight. Holy crap, with just portions of his energy. Now at max power, we can see like the actual crater. Again, I might even throw a calc in here at the very end just to give you guys an idea. But what I want to really suggest is imagine the boost when he fully masters the dragon, and we'll see it. But yeah, you can also see the size of the crater compared to like what Toguro did. Now, as we continue on, with Genkai having passed on, we know that Yusuke decides to shoot a spirit gun, because note, Yusuke hit Toguro's fist with a punch, not a spirit gun, and Koenma takes note of the power. He fires it off as a signal to her in heaven. But like everybody notices it, like what the, right? And he is like, holy shit. Like, we can also see the speed here is actually astronomical. This is something that would be at, like, we can use low balls to figure minimum speeds here, because there's other characters who can react to this at like point blank. This is Yusuke, again, at like 10% of his actual energy. And Kuwabara notes, like, that spirit gun is like more potent than like any weapon that's ever been on Earth. And this is a statement that is actually backed by feats as we continue on for sure. In terms of potency. Now again, if you're talking about like a Tsar bomb, it would cause far more destruction. But again, we'll be able to show more scaling as we go on. But this is actually supposed to, we have his spirit gun, and they are talking about just how much he's powered up. Essentially is the idea. But Kuwabara is like, but everyone has a unique spirit, and now I have a unique spirit sword, because Kuwabara at this point and Kurama were both given items by Suzuka, yeah, which I didn't show because it has nothing to do with scaling, but Kuwabara got an amp, and now he has a new special sword, so he's gotten stronger, and Hiei, you can see his arm there, he's done some training, and Kuwabara's like, what happened to your arm? And he is like, I overdid my practicing a bit. You know, he's talking about, I need to master the dragon by tomorrow. Wonder what happened. Now, another thing is, remember just how crazy Kuwabara's sensing is? Out of everyone, who has the best sensing? Kurama was in the room the entire time, and Kuwabara couldn't even sense him. Now we have gone on towards what would be the finals. Now, an important thing to note when we're talking about the finals, because we'll see feats that go with this, is the amount of people in the crowd. I want you to get an idea, because the finals is when it's the most packed. Maybe. I don't know. I think it was always sold out, actually. But look at the sheer number of people. Okay, next scan. Really, look at the sheer number of people. Every single panel shows just an absolute disgustingly huge amount of people. Look at the seating. This isn't seating like you would see at like a football stadium. This fits far more people just in how the seating arrangements are. And they are packed. This will matter later. Alright, so let's go on to Kurama versus Karasu. Now, I'll be showing essentially the whole fight, or well, most of it, but I'll be talking over just the scaling parts. Now, the main thing here is Kurama versus Karasu. Karasu is so powerful that Kurama cannot sense his cannot see his Yoki energy or like his actual attacks, because there's too big a difference between their power. And Kurama, of course, he tries to stall for time so he can turn into Yoko, but he's just not strong enough. Now, eventually, we get it to where Kurama turns into Yoko, and he's talking about, like, you know, he's happy to meet a quest class. Now, for those who have been wondering about what a quest class is, it's simply a class of demon that can materialize essentially like actual objects into reality from power alone. So he can do this with bombs, right? An example of this would be anime only Bui, who can, you know, he kind of does it as well, where he can essentially create his axe out of nothing and just pure energy. He can't do this in the manga because he's actually not a quest class, but that's what it is materializing solid actual like things into reality off of your power. Now we know that, of course, when he transforms, he is able to tank his bombs, and he is able to actually fight back very well, easily dodge out most of his attacks, and overpower him at every turn. Now what's very important here is we can see that Karasu actually gets essentially like pseudo blitz, not really, there's multitudes of things, but Karasu is obscenely fast, as I've talked about before. But here is something huge. All those plants actually wrap around him, all of them at the same time, and Karasu can blow up all of them simultaneously. And he does this tanking his own explosion. Something to note here is how the shockwaves are drawn, because these shockwaves, right, the explosion is in the center. So what are some of these, you know, these shockwaves here? Well, that's air pressure, right? That's how they're drawn. I'll show more, because some people try to, again, go against certain feats, but like with Sensui's air pressure punch, Taguro's air pressure, like, it's all air pressure. I don't understand how people don't understand it. But anyways, we see the explosion in the middle, we see air pressure, we see how it's drawn, and he can tank his own explosion point blank. Now, what's even more is they talk about his mask coming off, and now he's gonna go essentially Super Saiyan. and he has increased his power by an absurd amount. With Hiei even talking about he's a bomb now. And he's gonna go into his biggest attack. Goes in, and my god, look at the size of that explosion. How many magnitudes stronger are these characters? Like, so let's compare them to, like, the potency. What do you think the potency difference between, like, Karasu and, like, you know, like, Shishiwakamaru is at this point, right? So, we see that explosion. Remember the crowd? This is just a small portion here, but what's blowing everybody back here? Is it the explosion, or is it the air pressure? I'm not gonna answer that. But this is massive explosion, and the energy was smaller than Karasu himself. Again, this isn't like he did a spirit bomb, right? And Kurama, he survives by essentially, he de-transforms back into Kurama. And now he can't even see his Yoki energy anymore because he's simply too much weaker. He gets trapped and he's essentially getting attacked over and over again. And now, if you didn't believe me the first time about the amp in using life energy from Yusuke to Suzaku, remember Yusuke was able to one-shot Suzaku's with his spirit gun, but then he could like mega one-shot all of them using life energy while at like 0%. How about Kurama's not even Yoko anymore? And he's able to one-shot the empowered Karasu because of life energy. How insane is that? Life energy is absurd, and he was only able to survive because, remember in the past of this video? Remember before me talking about this? Because he was taking the power of Yoko every time he transformed. It's like, I don't know how has my power increased. That's right. It was Yoko's power transferring over to my body. Right. And that's why the transformation didn't last as long. Now, the next one is Hiei versus Bui. And we have quite a bit of scaling here. Now, that was pretty good for, you know, Kurama and Karasu. We got to see life energy and how it works. Massive difference between like B classes and C classes, even earlier, but here as well. And massive feat for Karasu, if we're just going off of, you know, everything up to this point. We get to see here that Hiei wanted to fight Toguro. He definitely feels himself, and we'll see why. So, Kurama versus Karasu was a pretty close fight. We'll get to see how the other ones go, but let's see how close of a fight Hiei versus Bui is. Now, here we get another shot, too, of Karasu's explosion. That is absurdly impressive once more. Again, the air pressure alone was massive, but even more so, look how thick all that steel is. And you can see the steam coming off, denoting certain levels of vaporization as well. It's not like it just melted or anything, or it just was an explosion that just blew apart, like fragmented. It didn't just fragment. It like actually vaped. Massed majority of it. Huge feat. So Bui comes in at Hiei. And of course he can't hit him. But then we can also see some physical strength here once more. This is with 0 energy. This matters a lot and is of course scalable. So he chucks this at him. And Hiei, you know, he blocks it. We know that he actually punches through it. But then Bui shows that he's actually very fast. Yusuke, of all people, is noting how fast he is. With 0% energy, I'm gonna keep saying that. Comes in on Hiei, and he literally just catches it and vaporizes the entire thing. Now, at this point, you're thinking like, oh no, he's like, what, just merely melting it? No, it's actually so instantaneous. If you think it's not vaping, watch the next scan here. You can see the steam and the just absolute, like, it's reduced to nothing but actual, like, steam. The melted parts are turning into steam. And eventually, nothing is left but steam. This is with a touch. Again, this makes sense anyways. As far back as Suzaku as a D class. We already had things that would suggest things like heat that would be getting, even remotely close to this. But this really goes to show, like, this is nothing for him. Hiei is holding back, no less. And Kurama's, he notes, he's like, his Black Dragon Flame has doubled in strength. However, he is holding back. But so is Bui. Now, he finally allows his aura to come out. This means he is absurdly above 0 energy Bui. If we're talking about, like, if we remember, like, every 10% of energy is essentially like a 2 times increase in stats from if you didn't have it before. Bui, with his base, with what he was showing, consider he went from like 0% to his full 100%. This man just got multiple magnitudes times stronger. So ridiculously stronger. Such that he has so much power coming out of him that his body actually does keep itself afloat. Not just with statements, but as you can see above. And yes, that would also be calculable. How much energy is keeping the human body afloat like this? However, Hiei obliges in terms of not holding back anymore. And Bui is like, shit. Because, I mean, this is just funny, right? He's screwed up. And we get the dragon. Now, the very important thing about the dragon is Bui just got a massive amp going into his full energy. Now, here's another thing is, the dragon itself is hitting Bui, but what's actually hitting what's causing all that destruction below? Is the dragon hitting it? Is Bui attacking it? No, that's the air pressure. You can see the actual lines of the ground like being risen up beneath and different shockwaves coming through as it's just passing by. Once more is we can see it where it's traveling with Bui and it actually vaporizes demons that it passes by, not hitting. And we can additionally see that it rampages through the stadium. We know that it's also vaporizing the audience because Koto actually talks about them being burnt to death. And it finally breaks through. Now, yes, this looks less impressive than the anime, as the dragon's not nearly as big. But again, potency actually, all that matters is the amount of destruction versus the size. It being smaller actually makes it more impressive if it can destroy about the same amount. Well, let's see how much it does destroy because we'll get to there. But Bui actually turns the dragon back on Hiei, which shows just the ridiculous amount of... It's no wonder that he was amped so much. His full power, he couldn't catch Hiei, he couldn't touch Hiei, his axe did literally nothing, and now, full-powered, doubled in Darkness Flame energy, Dragon of the Darkness Flame, Hiei. Bui was able to overpower it and turn it back. However, now we get Hiei at his actual full power. That's right, he wasn't even close to his full power. Here we can see that absorbing... The dragon itself, it's an attack. It's cool. It's probably the strongest attack in the series in terms of, like, compared to, like, what the character can do without a special attack. Minus Kuwabara's dimension cutting, I suppose. But its real power lies in absorbing it. And it raises the power to the nth degree. Nth degree, I don't have to give a pure number to the nth part because that is a variable amount. But to a degree is to, again, extrapolate that you are talking about exponential increases, right? Everything here I'm talking about scaling is to suggest that the scaling is in exponential terms. This is why it's not 10% more energy equals 10% more power. It's 10% more energy is a 2 times multiplier to stats in terms of power. Like, and we could see this through feats and the scaling, just how exponential every given thing is, which is why Bui's increase is so impressive. Now, to consider the nth degree, nth is to denote something at the highest degree. So, if we wanted to really lowball this, you really can't go any lower than like the 4th degree. But if you wanted to, if you don't like taking that number because it is a variable, I can sympathize. So if you really, really want to lowball even more so than that, what you could do is compare this boost to Yoko's. It is a bigger boost than Yoko's, comparatively so. Yoko's is an 80 times PL boost. So you could mega lowball this to say it is additionally another 80 times PL boost. It is obviously larger than Yoko transformation boost. But if otherwise, this is a 4th degree times boost. That would be even much further. So pick your poison. However you cut it, it is astronomically, like, disgusting jumps. And to give you an idea, what level of power, like what class is Hiei when he does this jump here? So he goes from mid B class, being able to keep up with Bui casually, easily, to mid B class. He ends at mid B class. You'll see the scan, but he doesn't even jump a class. He doesn't even go up from mid B to high B class. This is why the scaling, Jesus Christ, like everything points to it, but when you really get an idea, like how many magnitudes stronger does it take to get from B class to A class then? This also shows why the jump from D class to C class is magnitudes less than the jump from C class to B class, which is many, many magnitudes less than B to A, from A to S, from S to mid S, from mid S to high S, etc., so on and so forth. And Bui here, he cannot hit Hiei, or hurt Hiei, rather. And he just stands there and he's like, just laughs at him. Bui's like, shit, again, like, you can't do anything. And here we can see with a simple shove, he sends him all the way up, jumps up, and he takes him down with a single hit. Now this is absurdly powerful because you'll see Bui still has his battle aura on. I actually got bamboozled, and it wasn't until like about almost a week ago that I didn't realize, because I always get mixed up with anime, but in the anime he drains his energy. He actually doesn't have that as a power. In the manga, he doesn't drain his energy, which actually makes this far more impressive. Bui didn't have no energy. He wasn't drained. Bui still had full energy. He still had the same amount of aura that completely redirected the full power of the dragon, and yet here, he's getting injured and two-shot by Hiei. That means his every given punch is stronger than the totality of the dragon, far more potent when you consider that it's all that energy is compacted into just the size of a fist, no less. And Bui cannot tank it, he's two-shot. We can see some destruction and of the battlefield as well, the stadium. And what's more is we can get an idea of the thickness of it. This comes later when we can scale Toguro, who carries another stadium from one side of the island to the other. But look how thick that stadium is. This matters. Now, the last thing I can show you is the actual full destruction of the dragon. If you remember, it broke through the stadium and it had rampaged across the top of the actual ceiling. The thing is that we find out it actually vaporized the entire stadium area that it had been passing through. There is no debris there. There is no note of anyone carrying things away. Toguro brings back the one thing that was destroyed that he can, which is a new stadium. But there is no pickup crew whatsoever, and the stadium, every bit that is gone is what the dragon hit, and there is nothing left. Just to point out just even more so the pure potency of this dragon, which really shows the power and durability of Bui, which really shows the potency of Hiei. Remember I was talking about like the boost of Hiei absorbing, like actually mastering some of the dragon, and how much of a boost it gives him each time he did? This is him mastering it. Now, onto Toguro's feat, as I was talking about. He carries the stadium. Here we can get another idea of the stadium and how big it is. Now you might say, oh, well, here's how thick the stadium is. The other one gives a better idea. If you don't believe me, when we're talking about perspective, this is kind of an odd perspective. Because Toguro himself, we can't see just how wide he actually gets here. He looks to be no more than 10% Toguro. But look at perspective. The further away things are, the smaller they are, the bigger, the closer they look. Look at the stadium as it gets closer to us, and look at the line, how much more it extends outwards, right? And so the thickness really kind of depends on where you're looking at it, and that's why I'm bringing in the other scan to actually show the thickness. Now we can compare when I calc this, thickness to thickness, and I can give low ends to high ends. But alright, now to Elder Toguro versus Kuwabara. Now, Kuwabara has also amped himself by a crazy amount, and Kurama notes that he has become far stronger at converting his Reiki into both offense and defense. And yet Elder Toguro can still pierce through him very casually. Very, very casually. He's very, very potent. Because you can see he's piercing through. Oh man, but he's not wiping out mountains. That's not very destructive. Get out of here. Those same potency things, Kuwabara now loses that sword that was amping him. And the thing is that Kuwabara gets pissed off, and he gets a little Yusuke amp here. He gets pissed off, and Toguro goes in, and he cannot pierce him anymore. Kuwabara amped himself above even what he had with the sword, just off of human emotion, the spirit that Dr. Ichigaki could never calculate. And now we can see he actually is able to fire off shards of essentially almost like a shotgun, a spirit shotgun is what he can do. So as Elder Toguro here is you threw dirk-like blades made of Reiki originating from your sword. So he actually had his normal spirit sword and then essentially made a shotgun out of it, like Yusuke's. And it cut through Elder Toguro like nothing. Once more, he is mid-B class. Then we can also see that Kuwabara can actually control with energy the same very the hilt. I don't know if it's because he has some other power we've never seen before, or if because it has his energy within it already, and so that's why he can control it. But we see him pull it back towards him, and he ends up completely cutting through Elder Toguro once more. But at this point, we can see he can also transform his sword into what he calls essentially a giant fly swatter. He can essentially change the AoE to whatever it is he's needing it to be, which is quite useful. But we can see the size here. Let's get an idea here. It is smaller than Kuwabara himself in total volume by a massive amount. Now, you might say, but look how big it is compared to Toguro. You're comparing surface area. You're not comparing volume. Length, width, and height. You're probably just looking at its length and height. If you think that it's even remotely the same volume of space as Kuwabara. It is quite flat. And yet, we know that it completely just obliterates the area and also obliterates Toguro to where he needs to liquefy his body into the cracks of the stadium. But moving on, that doesn't... Man, I'm so sorry, Kuwabara, but you really just don't have the feats that give the best for scaling. But let's move on to Toguro and Yusuke. What's more is we can get another idea of some of the thickness here of the stadium, but before we go there, I want to show that same Toguro feat. So here's 0% Toguro, and this would also suggest that it could have been 0% Toguro that lifted this stadium, but we know that his brother Elder Toguro comes back after coming back from liquefying his own body, just to show his level of regeneration, and yet 0% Toguro punches him this distance, completely obliterating his body to such a degree that he actually has trouble regenerating. For those who know what happens later when Sensui finds him, he actually takes a long time to regenerate his body and it's just ahead. We've seen his regeneration be god tier. Well, you can see in the bottom left here where it says the island and where he was hit. Honestly, it's probably further. Yeah, like, it was probably an island and half distance if they were in the middle of the island. As I've showed, they're actually at the bottom left. They're next to the letter T in the island. He knocked him about 2 islands worth distance at 0%. Absurd. Absurd. All within the force, like, within just his fist. Now, you might be wondering, it seems like he can almost just do crazy feats. Like, that feat was probably more impressive than his actual cratering feat he did at 80%. Honestly, kind of, yeah. Toguro's always holding back. Even at given percentages, he's always holding back. If you don't believe me, we'll get there. Let's cover, finally, we are now at Toguro versus Yusuke, and he starts at 80%. And he is now vaporizing. Yes, vaporizing. I keep talking about vaporization because it is actually one of the highest energy yields per centimeter cubed of space for actual, like, calcs. And you can see here, they're literally melting into nothing. And this is demons, not humans. That matters. And this is just 80%. He's not attacking them. This is just his aura. You can even see that Kurama, he's injured, mind you, but Kurama is not a simple D-class demon, like, in the stands or anything. Kurama is, like, on probably scales to about the lower end of B class, like lowest end of B class, and when he's in Yoko form, he's probably about mid B class, probably like around Bui's level. Now, while injured, true, he literally cannot withstand 80% Toguro's aura, just his aura. And so he needs Koenma who specializes in defensive things, you know, to protect him. Now, let's move on to the fight. I will also go through this and comment on the main parts. And here we can see the air pressure of Toguro's punch hitting nothing. This hits nothing, and yet it travels through the stadium, and you can see the shockwave and like actual drawings. We know that this is air pressure aside from him just physically hitting nothing and it causing this destruction. So he goes in, backhands. What's more, we have more air pressure. Bottom left really showcases how air pressure is drawn. This is just like Sensui's feat. This is just like Karasu's explosions. Get the idea. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about the air pressure other than when he actually does a feat. You can see that the air pressure is cratering the stadium. And it travels so far, it's blowing up all the way through into the stadium walls, which we've seen the distance that actually is. And air pressure gets exponentially weaker as it travels. It's absurd how much power is in here. And this again shows just how much force difference in classes, because now that we're in B class, holy crap. Now, what's more is this is Yusuke once more at like 10% of his total energy. But so, we can see here, if you remember me talking about like Toguro seems to always be holding back regardless of his percentage, so he's like, I'm at 45%. What it is he's at like 45% of his total PL. But that doesn't mean he's not holding back even more. Like, if you think he was actually full power trying to punch Genkai there, and that's what made that crater, you're just so astronomically incorrect. He's like never actually trying. He's holding back while holding back his total PL that he's even putting out. Now, if you want some more proof of that, we can see here is they're talking about like their defense and attack is just an instant equal to the explosion of fireworks. Everybody, they look evenly matched, and this is like 10% like Yusuke in his total PL, and Toguro at like 80% of his total PL. However, we can see like Hiei notes like neither of them are showing what they can really do. They're just testing each other. Okay, well that's just Hiei saying that. Well, here we have Toya and Jin. Toya is talking about like it looks like Yusuke is at about 60%, while Toguro hasn't put out more than 30% of his power. But wait, 30% of his power? I thought Toguro was at 80% power and 60% power. You know, they would think that Yusuke might be at like 100% of his power, since they can't tell that he has this spirit shackles on. You'll see why I keep saying that Yusuke's at like no more than 10% of his actual total energy at full power, no shackled anymore. You'll see the crazy difference. But to note, if you really need it, Toguro for sure here I thought he was at 80%. Now they're saying he's at 30%? Well, yes. He's using 30% of his totality limited to only 80% of his true totality. I hope that's not confusing, but to give you an idea, let's say his 200% power is 1,000 units of power. At 80% power, his PL isn't 1,000, it would be like 800. So his cap, while at 80% body, like his body being at 80%, his cap would be the 800 energy that he can pull out. He's only choosing to throw out 30% of that 800, would be how it is. Yusuke, likewise, is only using 60% of his current total that he's using, which is the strongest he's ever been, while capped at like 10% of his total power. With Jin even backing up, like, that his ray gun really multiplies his power when he uses it. And here's the thing is, yeah, it really multiplies it. We've covered this multiple times. There's multiple scans that show it where, you know, like each time I use it, it gets more potent. Even at the very first time that it's shown, it's directly a 2 times multiplier in potency to his punches. And by now, it's far, far more than that. I've even shown in like my first video that it's already like, even at the Genkai tournament, there it's already scaling 3 times more potent. So just to give you an idea, they're using such little fractions, and they're still at B class levels of power for when I go into the higher levels of B class. So now, Yusuke starts hitting Toguro, and he's like, that tickles, and he doesn't budge, and he throws out another punch. This air pressure, what's more, is like 30% of his 80% of his power. I've already explained it, so hopefully you're no longer confused what I mean by 30% of 80%. He goes to punch Yusuke, he misses, hits the stadium. Now, remember that crater? You really think that was his full power? Because now still at 30% to his 80%. He goes and does this, and shatters everything, the entire stadium. And he says, now come after me, I've given you a boost. And what he means is, he's left himself open on purpose, so that he can have Yusuke actually use everything. And Yusuke takes the shot. He hits him with a spirit gun, and we can see the light emitting off of the spirit gun as it's hitting Toguro, and it blasts through the stadium wall. Goes all the way through the island, shattering and uprooting trees as it goes. And what's just insanely impressive here is, what's more is, as I've said, knocking someone a distance is impressive proportional to who's being pushed. Toguro is the strongest character thus far. This was Yusuke using 100% of his 10% of his energy. And they even note that that was the strongest ray gun that they've ever seen. Just to back up that this is his strongest they've ever seen, ever shown, he's ever done. What's more is, I almost forgot, I just want to hit this point real quick. Toguro vaping the audience wasn't him at 80% power. That also was at 30% of his 80%. Okay? Get this very, clear. Like, the scaling at this point has gone so astronomical, like thousands and thousands of times more powerful than what they were showing at even like C class. Now we can see the actual damage that's done somewhat, and we can see Toguro come back. And Yusuke's spirit gun did nothing, like damage wise. He actually tanked through the entire thing and isn't scratched. Now let's see what Toguro is, what he can do when he's at full power. You can see he actually flexes all of his aura and can cut Yusuke up with just his aura. Yusuke even notes it, and he's like, just at 80%, there's still such a gulf between our power level. And Toguro notes, like, I'll just finish you off at 80%. So at this point, yeah, Yusuke can't handle 80% Toguro when he's actually trying, at full power. So now we get, little flashback here, and we get to see what I'm talking about when I bring up the spirit shackles. And Genkai essentially is like, is this something that will lock away your ray so you can improve it? They're ray inhibitors for training in ray techniques. So now kind of like Gamma's technique for, sealing your ray energy. or Bui's armor, or whatever given else. This is doing the same thing. Now, this essentially locks it away, cannot use it. Instead, we can see here, she's like, it's impossible to move it with just physical strength, something that like Bui would do. You have to use your Reiki. And he's like, hey, does that mean I gotta be at full power all the time? She's like, if you don't want to die. First of all, let's get you accustomed to wearing them. You'll end up doubling your power if you stay at full power. And we know he ends up getting way more than that. Maybe. It's hard to tell because he already got the Spirit Orb amped. So at this point, he's not just Spirit Orb amped. He's Spirit Orb amped plus he ends up doing the cuff training. So maybe it was just double and the Orb amp is even bigger than I think. However, the thing is as it says, just to even be able to move, he has to use all of his energy. And then, of course, this is in the flashback, we eventually saw that he was able to do it casually, sleep in them, fight 80% Toguro in them. And he also had injured Toguro's hand when he killed Genkai, broke it. He was able to do that with a punch, not even Spirit Gun, with them. So this is why I'm saying, if he's completely inhibited and it takes all that energy just to even be able to move at all, and it's supposed to inhibit your ability to even use energy, this is why he would be at like 10% of his energy, given he has just to be able to move. So now he's gonna take them off. Now if you think that 10% still sounds too low, well, let's look at the increase when he takes them off. First off, just before anything happens, Kuwabara is like, that's an unbeatable power. Toguro does not even begin to compare to it, he's definitely going down. And Toguro realizes that power, but Kuwabara is very good at sensing, like I said. And he knows Yusuke is vastly above Toguro now. So let's get an idea here. 80% Toguro could completely no-sell Yusuke's Spirit Gun, uninjured, walk out and cut that same Yusuke up with his spirit energy, with his aura alone. So Yusuke takes off the cuffs. How much stronger is he? This is the fight with Yusuke actually taking the cuffs off. He's hitting Toguro and that's doing craters now. He's not hitting the ground to crater, now he's just hitting Toguro and he just completely blitzes him. You can also see the speed difference for a lot of this. I want to make it also clear, he does this with punches, not Spirit Gun. And the Spirit Gun, again, is many magnitudes more potent than his punches. His Spirit Gun couldn't injure him, he was getting cut up by his aura. Now he takes off his shackles and now he can blitz and obliterate Toguro with his punches alone. And yes, I mean blitz, his speed went up astronomically. This is why I'm talking about Bui being considered fast with 0 spirit energy and then going up to full spirit energy. This is why having that energy matters so much. Hiei, when he fought Kuro, he wasn't at the fastest he could be. All of this is to show just how much it matters. So Toguro's now going to go 100%. And what he does is he vaporizes a quarter of the entire audience. Remember how many people are actually in the audience? It's insane. And Kuwabara now notes 100% Toguro. He's like, my race sense hasn't been working for a while, now I think I know why. If I felt that Yoki fully, I'd go insane. He just could not actually fully sense Toguro's full power. But it's not because Kuwabara is not like the best at sensing. Toguro just has that much power. But all he did is go from 80% to 100%. Is that a 20 times increase? Well, what was the increase of Yusuke going from, uncuffed to, from cuffed to uncuffed? Was that a 20% increase? Hell no. Absurd increase. Absolutely obliterating Toguro with his punches that, again, even his Spirit Gun couldn't do. Well, Toguro is only a 20% increase, right? Well, if that's true, Yusuke should still be able to blitz him absolutely no problem. Should still put him down with single punches, right? Let's keep going. How about with the air pressure of his thumb flicking the air from afar, he can knock Yusuke airborne. You can see here, he just keeps hitting him with little air pressure bullets from his thumb. And Yusuke has to bat them away. He jumps in to punch Toguro, and he blocks that punch with his thumb, and then just breaks his arm, casually. Quick question, do you think this is 100% Toguro using 100% of his power? You think this is Toguro using 100% of his 100%? Now, I don't mean him using 100% over his 100%. I'm not talking about, is he using, like, his absolute, like, highest PL? I'm talking about, is he even using the full extent of the PL he currently has of his base 100%? Because obviously he's holding back to absurd amounts. We know that he doesn't actually want to kill Yusuke, he wants a real fight, and he's trying to pull it from Yusuke. You'll see it here coming up, but he's blocking his punches with a thumb. This is not a 20% increase. Again, this is as verbatim as it gets, that if you want to even lowball to the lowest degree, this is a 2 times increase in stats to a 20% increase in PL, but it's not 20%, it's 10% because he can go to a 200% for his full power. That means his difference of 80% to 100% is actually the difference of 40% to 50% of his true full power. It's a 10% increase in totality power, PL. That's making this difference in stats. Well, how about a spirit gun then? How strong is that? Well, it's stronger than his punches that he blocked with the thumb. Is he holding back? Look at the face to grow in the bottom right panel here. Look at the face he's giving it. And look how point blank it is. We know the speed of the spirit gun is massively fast. And look how close it gets to his face. And he has the time to just breathe in the air and yell at it. That's right, the air pressure of his lungs can one-shot his spirit gun. Yusuke's spirit gun. This is 100% uncuffed Yusuke's spirit gun. And he has more air pressure that he can create. He can yell at a demon and put out more potency force behind it than Yusuke can with his spirit gun right now. That's the power increase of a 10% totality PL increase. That's the increase of his stats. Holy hell. And now we just see Toguro's talking about, like, there's something lacking in you, a sense of crisis. And he blitzes Yusuke and knocks him into the stadium. You still think he's even using his full power of just the PL he's currently at? Well, why doesn't he just kill Yusuke then? What's he trying to do? What's he trying to achieve? Here, he's trying to piss him off because we know that that's how he gets more power. And now he starts just actually sucking in the souls of demons. This isn't the same thing. This isn't his aura. He's not vaping people with just his aura. This is an actual technique. His body able to eat people. And he can actually, like, eat people's souls, pull them from their body. Now we know this actually starts affecting people who are even, like, lower in C class, like the M3, M2, I don't know which one he is, but this is pretty impressive. And we can also see here, with air pressure alone, he punches out that air pressure and it snipes next to Yusuke's friends in them. And he's like, the next one will hit the right spot. Because he's not trying to kill Yusuke, he's just trying to piss him off so he can actually pull out his full power. And so Yusuke does get pissed. He runs in, and now he hits Toguro, and it actually moves him. This is where, once again, at punches. This isn't his spirit gun. He punches Toguro, and it actually moves him. But as we see, he's actually ends up uninjured, and he just knocks Yusuke back down. And Genkai actually possesses the body of Pooh, who tells Toguro how he needs to awaken him, and it's kill one of his friends. If you want to see his actual full power, that's how you gotta do it. So now, Toguro, who just got hit by that punch, well, now he's in crisis mode. If anything, he'd be stronger, and now he can't even harm Toguro at all. Probably because Toguro's choosing to use even just fractions more of effort with his actual total PL of just his base 100%. And now Yusuke's about to do a spirit gun. and he's blitzed. He cannot follow Toguro. He's right behind him and just puts him down and crushes his spirit. And then we know he basically fake kills Kuwabara, but that's enough for Yusuke to think he's dead. And he goes to Agumon some more. Talks about, like, I think that another sacrifice wouldn't do much harm since it's turned out like this. But Yusuke stands up, and he is absurdly fast. Toguro can barely keep track at all. And he's immediately behind him. And Toguro's like, I'm shuddering. And at this point, now everybody can tell that he's changed. Kurama's like, he doesn't even emit the same energy, like, at all. And this is, of course, just his aura. Well, at this point, now we have full power Toguro at his base 100%, hitting Yusuke, and he's talking like, these punches before would have atomized you. Atomization. And Toguro now hits Yusuke, and he's like, you don't even feel that. Like, now it's not even doing anything to you. And Yusuke's like, yeah, you're right, but he's still kind of like being passive, and Toguro's like, you know what, fine, I'll just kill another one of your people, if you're not gonna like give it your everything. And then Yusuke blitzes up to him, like, before he can actually even like know that he's there, grabs his hand, and just grabbing his hand is shattering the ground beneath them. They're not even actually attacking or anything. And he gives him a punch. Once more, we are talking about a punch, not a spirit gun. And this time, he doesn't just have his head turned. Now, he is sent flying repeatedly all the way to a wall, as we would know. But the main thing, the next scan I'm going to show is this mega spirit gun. This thing is massive. Now, if you had seen a debate, this is a point, because the overall point was true, and I was trying to show, like, if you try to make it smaller, its potency just is more impressive for what it is. But it's not smaller, I don't understand. So, you can see the size compared to the actual stadium, and we can see that it actually obliterates through it. We can see that ultimately, it gets, as it goes, its air pressure alone is actually uprooting kilometers of trees. And then we can see in the bottom left its actual full size compared to the island, with it shooting up kilometers of water with just air pressure alone. Now, is the spirit gun closer to us than the island? Yes. So it should look bigger than, it would be if it was, in contrast to the actual size of the island. True. But you're acting like you would have to act like the spirit gun is like massively closer to us than the island, and it's just not. Like, it's very clearly not. You could say that it's maybe, like 30 degrees closer to us, but it's not anything even remotely close. It's not like it's even coming, it's still going in the same direction of, like, from left to right, mind you. It's not even remotely close to suggest that it's massively smaller than what it looks like compared to the island. So I just want to say that. But if it is smaller, that just means it's even more potent. Regardless of how you take it, I'm just trying to show that this now is a huge power behind the spirit gun, with it uprooting kilometers of trees at whatever size you want to say it is, man. And the thing is Toguro, he heals himself because he has regeneration. But at this point, now he's going to bring out his full 200%, 100% over 100% maximum power. Now, here's the thing, is some people are talking about, like, oh, now he's using 100% of his 100%, and it's just not at all how it is. He is using 100% over his 100%. Now, percentages seem to mess with people, like when they go from, like, fractions, decimals, percentages, right? So let's say he has, at 100%, he has that same PL of 1,000 total energy units. If he's using 50% of that, totality energy units, he'd be using 500, right? He'd be using 50% of his 100%. If he was using 100% of his 100%, he'd be using 1,000 of that energy units. But to use 100% over 100%, well, 100% is 1,000 energy units. So this is 1,000 over 1,000, which would be like 2,000. It's a 2 times increase, right? This is, in terms of like total PL here. His body has achieved 2 times the PL of what he was at before, which, if every 10% is a 2 times increase in stats minimum, it's obviously much higher. You can just imagine the absurd increase in power. Hint, when we're talking about pure potency and such, this is about a 1,024 times multiplier in stats for like speed and actual potency. Which is why when Yusuke hits him with the spear gun at absolute full power, now that he's completely unleashed everything he's got, unshackled, he's got his, pissed off amp, he's got his I'm useless, I should have saved Kuwabara amp, pure spirit gun, no longer just a fist. If you compare his punch to his spirit gun, his punch didn't obliterate 100%, like base false 100% Toguro, but his spirit gun actually one-shots the 200% Toguro. His spirit guns are not only 2 times stronger than his punches at this point. His spirit guns are easily lowballable down to a 10 times multiplier to his punches at this point. Honestly, it's higher than that, but just, again, 10 is also a very easy number to use. And Toguro goes down. It takes everything from Yusuke. He does this without life energy, mind you. But Toguro takes it out. Now, I want to make this one thing clear here, is that Toguro notes, like, able to bring out 120% of your strength for a friend. This is where I think the anime talks about 120% Toguro. I don't know what it is. There's never a 120% Toguro except in anime. The only time 120% is brought up when he's talking about Yusuke bringing out 120% for a friend, right? Like, his effort is what he's talking about. And, like, that's what makes you strong. And that's because Toguro was always like, I'm alone. All you need is maximum power for yourself. Serve yourself for power. Nothing will go against you. Blah, 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 blah. You can overcome everything. But Yusuke was like, I'm not willing to throw away my friends, yada, yada, yada. And to Toguro, it was a clash of ideologies. And Toguro's like, you were able to bring out 120% of your effort for your friend, and that's what makes you strong. Now, I know it ends with Toguro, but I'm going to bring up one last thing because we got into people holding back from their total energy, or, the energy that they are, like, limiting themselves to, using fractions of that. Like I just showed with Toguro, using 30% of his 80% of it, yada, yada, yada. I really do hope it's clear. If in the comments section anyone has questions, I can answer them. But it's even shown with Sensui, right? So Sensui has his defensive armor, he has his offensive armor, and we know from defense to offense, like his armor, he goes from I can full contact blow the mid A classes to if you get near my aura, you're one shot. But I want to suggest even before that, when they were trapped in Itsuki's realm, it was Sensui, when he finally goes Shinobu, it's at his base level Shinobu power where he eventually kills Yusuke, right? He actually murders Yusuke. And the thing is he is suppressing himself to absurd degrees, far more than people think. Now, we have the statement like, if I go above 50% of my power, then, I might destroy Ningen-kai, is the full translations of the actual Raw. The thing is some people have said, like, well, he went over 50% and, the world is fine. He never went above 50%, like, not even close. You have to understand, he never even went, like, defensive armor until he went into Demon World. And on Human World, we can see here, like, Hiei and Kurama, like, I guess you can't sense it because you're both human, but right now, his power's on the same level as an S-class. Kurama's like, he's suppressing his power as much as he can to him, breaking Yusuke's arm was like crushing an ant. And, they're talking about, like, Hiei's like, I was so careless, I thought he was just overestimating himself, but he's strong enough to kill us all with ease. Like, the thing is like, they can tell that he's S-class power while suppressing himself the most he absolutely can while in base. This isn't like he's suppressing himself while in defensive aura, or like defensive armor. This isn't he's suppressing himself the most he can while at, offensive aura. This is He's suppressing himself the most he can while at just base Shinobu. And when he lets out the smallest amount of little aura, he ends up like affecting the lands around him. And that's why he's like, I cannot, go above 50% or the world, I might destroy it. So that's where the statement comes from. That's how it works. Little bit of Sensui thing there, but this also backs up. It's not, there's so much that goes from it. Like, you know how Sensui has the feat of Beheaded Hill, where he destroys Beheaded Hill with just the air pressure of his punch. We also get scaling, an idea of scaling from like B class to Guro, top of B class, to Sensui at the lowest of S class. Is it any surprise? Let's look at the difference of the feats. We have like Toguro, how much is his air pressure doing, not his actual contact, what is his air pressure doing in force? And now let's compare it to Sensui's Beheaded Hill feat with force. That's literally billions of times more potent, like in difference of power. It's insane, but it makes sense because that's the difference of B class to S. That's not even B class to A, which is already multi-magnitudes above the difference of just like C class to B. That's already magnitudes upon magnitudes. Well, it's even more than that for B to A, but then we have A to high A to the lowest, like, Jesus. So yeah, this is the finale of Yu Hakusho scaling from all the way from the beginning, all the way to Guro. A little bit of Sensui there. And I don't have time to show a calc, but that's okay because I can't wait to show you all of it at once anyway, so just stay hyped, right? Just stay tuned in for my next vid after this. I know this was kind of long, but this finishes it. If anyone has any questions about anything, then I can answer, like I said, in the comments. And if anyone ever is like, how does Yu Hakusho scale? These videos hopefully show that the scaling is just simply absurd. It's not like, oh, he became 2 times stronger. It's like, oh, that 2 times increase, he became like 10% stronger. And people are constantly using fractions of their energy, and hopefully it's all laid out clearly enough that there are no more questions on how Yu Hakusho does its scaling, how it does its energy, and how the world of Yu Hakusho is treated. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. This series, I would even really like if people were to share, because honestly, this is information that people just don't know about. And ultimately, now I'm really excited because I can move on to my respect thread where I can start uploading some calculations, like actual calcs of different feats, and show you some of the absurdities of the powers, because everything's almost always coming down to the size of a fist. Toguro piercing Kuwabara with like little spear fingers, right? And it's like, yeah, it's lacking in destruction, but you'll see why everything is so potent. So, not to keep repeating myself, I'm sorry, but really hope you guys enjoyed the videos. I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and ciao.
Pastor.